Hola clase! Today we are going to talk about El Mundo Hispanohablante, which means the Spanish-speaking world. We're going to look at all of the different countries in the world that speak Spanish, and just pick out a few highlights of each one about the culture, the geography, the history. And we're going to jump right in with Europe. Europa, or Europe. This is an overhead satellite image of it. We're going to be talking about Spain. Right here, this is Spain on the map. This is where the Spanish language originates, obviously. And most of really Central and South America speak Spanish because of the Spanish colonists who came over right around the same time as the British. Up here were coming over to North America. The Spaniards and the Portuguese were coming to South America. So that's why we have Spanish spoken in South America and English spoken in the United States and Canada. So Spain, or in Spanish, España. This is a more detailed map of Spain. The capital is Madrid, and in Spanish, la nacionalidad es español o española. This is a very famous cathedral in Barcelona, Spain. It's called La Sagrada Familia. It was designed by a famous Spanish architect named Gaudí. And over here you will see that it made it onto this map as well, over near Barcelona. Madrid is in the very center of the country. And over here is Santiago de Compostela. I actually went, that's the only part of Spain that I've been to. I did a week-long hiking trip across this northern part of Spain through Galicia, and then that culminated at the cathedral in Santiago de Compostela. One of the most famous dances from Spain is the flamenco dance, which you can see represented right here. These are some flamenco dancers. And we're going to very quickly just look at a clip of a flamenco dancer. Okay. As you'll notice in the video, the fan is a very common prop in the flamenco dance. That's a very traditional flamenco dress. And the stomping part is a really kind of crucial part of the flamenco dance. It's a little bit like tap dancing in the US, but they wear these really heavy clogs. And as you can see in this picture here, sometimes it is danced with a partner, and as you saw in the video, sometimes it is danced alone. Moving on, Spain is the only country in Europe that speaks Spanish. So now we're moving into America del Norte, which is North America. Here is our overhead satellite map of North America. Hopefully you can see the United States is in the middle here, Canada's up here, there's Alaska, Greenland, Caribbean, and Mexico is down here. So, surprisingly enough, I'm including the United States, or in Spanish, Los Estados Unidos, in my list of Spanish-speaking countries because the United States actually has the world's second largest population of Spanish speakers. The largest population of Spanish speakers is in Mexico. But I'm including the US because Spanish is such a prevalent language here. In this map, you will see the darker the red the more Spanish speakers there are. So as you can see, most of the southwestern US has a very high density of Spanish speakers, and then there's other hubs in southern Florida, New York City area, as well as a little bit through the central and northern areas. But basically the idea is that no matter where you are in the US, there's going to be some people that speak Spanish. So it's really important to keep that in mind as you're studying. The capital, la capital de los Estados Unidos, es Washington, D.C., y la nacionalidad es estadounidense. For those of you that are in Spanish 1, you will notice the abbreviation for Los Estados Unidos is EEUU. That is because in Spanish, when you abbreviate something that's plural, you double up the first letters. So if it was just one United State, it would be EU. But since it's Estados Unidos, we use double letters to show that it's a plural abbreviation. It's one of those unique things about Spanish that you don't really get in English. Okay, México. La capital es la Ciudad de México y la nacionalidad es mexicano o mexicana. This is a map of Mexico, and you can see the flag of Mexico right in there. Down here on the left is an image of the Day of the Dead, El Día de los Muertos, which is a very popular Mexican holiday celebrated right around the time of Halloween in the US. However, it's very different from Halloween. And on the Day of the Dead, Mexicans believe that their dead loved ones can come back and sort of visit them, and so they go to the cemetery and they celebrate their loved ones' lives and what they meant to them. And often, as you can see in the picture, they might wear masks or face paint in the shape or in the design of a skull to commemorate their dead loved ones. If you've ever seen the movie Coco, that is what the whole movie is about. So if you haven't seen it, I recommend it very highly. And if you have, you'll recognize this kind of style. To the right here is Chichen Itza. This is one of the most famous pre-Columbian Mexican landmarks. Pre-Columbian means that it was built before Christopher Columbus and before all of the Europeans showed up. So this is a massive temple built by the Aztecs. And it was actually built by the Aztecs, but near a Mayan city, which is also part of the Chichen Itza complex. It's a bit, there's a lot of different ruins in this spot. It's not just the pyramid. There's Mayan temples, there's Aztec temples, but the neat thing about this pyramid is that depending on the time of year, when the sun lines up with the pyramid, it casts very specific shadows on the ground around it. Well, before we go on to Central America and the Caribbean, there's one more thing I wanted to show you for Mexico. You might be familiar with mariachi music, and if you're not, you might recognize it when you hear it. This is a very traditional mariachi band. You can see it's very large. The men are wearing these kind of sparkly, detailed outfits. There's a piñata up here. There are these papel picado flags hanging from the top of this gazebo that they're in. And take note as you watch this of the different instruments. There are some traditional European instruments like the violins, as well as some traditional Mexican instruments like these larger guitars here. And there's going to be a lot of vocalizing as well. so you'll notice there's also a lot of brass instruments in mariachi music. It's kind of a neat blend of brass and strings instruments. Moving on, we're going to look at Central America and the Caribbean. To start off, we have Guatemala. La capital de Guatemala es la ciudad de Guatemala. Y la nacionalidad es guatemalteco o guatemalteca. Here you can see a outline of Guatemala as well as the flag. This bird on there is the quetzal bird. That actually is what it looks like. It has a really long tail. It's very rare, but it's found in Guatemala. And that was a really significant bird for the indigenous people there, and so now it's represented on their flag. This is a picture of a marketplace in La Ciudad de Guatemala. And here is an example of folk art and kind of a blending of, European Catholicism with some indigenous art styles. So you can see that it is a church. You can tell by the crosses and, the crosses and the steeple. But it also has that very colorful, vibrant Guatemalan take on the decoration, which kind of is inspired by some of the indigenous artwork styles. El Salvador is next. La capital de El Salvador es San Salvador. La nacionalidad es salvadoreño. Again, this is the shape and flag of El Salvador. El Salvador is one of the smallest Spanish-speaking countries. It is very, very small. There are more people living in New York City than in El Salvador. As you can see here, this is a picture of the Salvadorian soccer team, or a player of the Salvadorian soccer team. In El Salvador, and basically in all of the Spanish-speaking world, soccer is the most popular sport. I know in the US we watch a lot of American football and baseball, but in most other countries, soccer is really the sport that people go really crazy for. In Spanish, soccer is called football, and actually in England they also call soccer football, and they call our football American football. So that can be a little confusing. Over here is a volcano. El Salvador has a massive number of volcanoes. There's actually a lot of volcanic activity throughout Central America, and this is just an example of one of them. Honduras. La capital de Honduras es Tegucigalpa y la nacionalidad es hondureño. This is a picture of Tegucigalpa at night. Over here we have again the flag and the outline, and down here are some macaws, which again are a type of rare bird that is found there. A large driving factor for the economy for a lot of the Central American nations is something called ecotourism, which means that people come there not necessarily for, resorts or shopping or anything like that, but they come to see the wildlife and the rainforests. So that's something that's very significant for their economy. Nicaragua. La capital de Nicaragua es Managua y la nacionalidad es nicaragüense. Over here we can see a performance of some folk plays. Again, all of the countries in Latin America have this kind of unique blend of Spanish culture with indigenous culture that kind of creates their own unique culture. Down here, this woman is picking coffee beans. Coffee beans are, even though when you use them, or maybe you see other people in your household drinking coffee, they're generally dark brown by the time you buy them in the store. But when they first are picked, they're this bright cherry red color, and then they go through a whole process of husking and drying and roasting before they turn into the dark brown coffee beans that we're used to seeing. So let's watch a short video that kind of has some good footage of that process.
The first agricultural staple that I focused on during this time was coffee. Coffee is hugely important to Nicaraguan culture and the Nicaraguan community. So my team and I went out to Selva Negra, La Jamonia farm, to see their organic coffee production process. We were able to see the workers picking the cherries as well as packing them into the truck, again, having them washed and sorted by ripeness and quality, saw them drying, raking, fermenting, and then ended with an in-depth cupping process where we learned how to distinguish the different aromas, how to properly compare the different beans. It was a really enlightening trip for all